y'all, I'm Hope here at Crafty Hope. I'm going to get right to it and then we'll do more of the introduction. This is card 52 of ICAD. The mixed media ICAD prompt is brush pen. So I showed y'all some watercolor brush pens I have there along with a Pentel pocket pen. And then the ICAD prompt from Tammy Garcia is wild card, which is invent your own prompt. So I decided to pull out some of my Crafty Hope prompt cards, pulled one at random. There are 3 prompts in there, and I decided that the one in the middle, paper punch, is the one that I felt the most comfortable with using for this day. So now that we've covered what I am doing kind of here, let me do more of an introduction about what's going on. So this video is part of a series of index card a day videos I'm doing. It's also known as ICAD. It's a challenge that comes from Tammy Garcia. I'm going to have her prompts below. Her links below. Tammy offers daily prompts and weekly themes to help inspire you into this mini art challenge. Really, the purpose of this challenge is to work every day on a small canvas, an index card, for the 61 days of the challenge. Now, the challenge runs June and July. Obviously, we're in October. I've just taken a while to share what I made. So you can definitely go back to Tammy's Instagram and see like what she has there. If you want to try checking out these prompts, that'd be great. In addition, my friend Nina Fickett has a set of prompts she calls Mixed Media ICAD to further inspire you in this 2-month challenge. So all right, so with that said, I took a piece of some, I think it's a plat map type thing. Nina actually sent that to me, that I used my Oohoo glue stick to stick right on my index card. And then from there, I picked out one of my mini paper punches. This one is shaped like a button. So it cuts out a circle, embosses a ring on the inside of the circle, and then there are 4 little holes inside the circles. So, and that makes like a button. And y'all, I'm obsessed with buttons. I think I picked this up at the thrift store of some kind, and you can see I'm having a little bit of trouble punching it out. That's a jelly print that was in my stash that I decided to punch out with. Excuse me, I got the hiccups or something. I decided to punch out 5 of those buttons. I'm going to move them around throughout this process to try to figure out what to do with them. You can see I'm looking at them with the paper side up, with the colored side up, just kind of studying them. Decided to go ahead and go to Nina's brush pen prompt, which was the mixed media ICAD prompt for today. And these are some, y'all, I had a friend send me a bunch of little watercolor bowls, I don't know, with leftover watercolor in them, and turn them into these watercolor brush pens. So I've got a short, I believe, of me doing that. I will link that up here in the right corner and probably down in the description box below if you want to see how I took some old watercolors and turned them into pens. So I used a green and a brown one, which is crazy because what is this is not going to be a green and brown card in the end. So from there, I have some Arteza modeling paste that was in the advent calendar I opened in December from Arteza, and you can see just putting that modeling paste straight on my card and smearing it around with a palette knife. Now it dries fairly clear, but it's like I don't know, you'll see when it's dry. It depends on how thick you put it on, how clear it's going to be. And since I'm spreading it like that, it's going to clear up basically, but be kind of milky-ish. So while it's still wet there, I have grabbed a Dylusions spray. I'm not real sure what that color is. I will put it below. It's like an orangey yellow one. And then I have a Tattered Angels spray in this like corally color, which definitely goes a bit more with the colors that are in those buttons there. I did spray a little extra water on them to let them move around in that modeling paste, and then I dried the whole thing. Now you can see I started kind of playing with these buttons, moving them around. looking at them, trying to figure out what am I going to do with them. And what I end up deciding to do is glue them all together, because despite the fact that I believe these were a cardstock, they're still fairly thin and floppy and all of that. And as I stacked them, I realized, ooh, I could make more of a substantial button by gluing them together. So once again, I think I'm going to just use my Oohoo glue stick and glue this little stack together. I've got one of them I really like the front of better than the rest of them, and the big thing was making sure I lined those holes up on the button. So I'm going to stack those up. I think I mentioned in my last ICAD video that I had realized over the course of this daily challenge that what I really liked in each of my cards was having like 3D assemblage elements. I'm really into assemblage art. If you can go back and watch a lot of my videos, there's a lot of assemblage going on, and my favorite cards in this year have been ones I've added lots of little bits of things. So this set of three cards, 52, 53, 54, that we're going to look at today, definitely have those assemblage elements to them. And granted, I've got some of the similar things and techniques I'm going to bring into each of them, but they still have their own unique personalities. So bulking up this button definitely helped add that little bit of a 3D element, that bulkier assemblage. So once I got it glued together and cleaned up some of the excess glue around the edges, I got a little piece of some off-white embroidery floss that was just sitting on my desk, and I am going to thread this button, make an X basically on it, and then tie it. So I'm making sure that the two ends are in the front. This is just a little thing I like to do with buttons, kind of a cheat, so it looks like it's sewn down, but it's not really. And I tie it in the front and then trim it close and fray the ends of the embroidery floss, which adds, I say again because I do this all the time, so it adds more texture to this. I am going to use the needle there to kind of help me separate the threads a little bit so I can fray that just a little bit more. Yep, this card came together, well, I can't remember. One of these cards came together really quickly. This video in itself for these three cards took me, it was almost 2 hours. So I'm just sharing with you the highlights of it. I'm editing out some of the drying time, some of the other things. So I did take an ink blender tool with some black soot distress ink on it and ink the edges of the button. And then to bring in also that kind of black color that I just added that's also on the button, I used an R2 pen from Dollar Tree. This is their rollerball cheapo pen that you can buy in sets of 3 or 4. And I like that when you put the ink down, you can, if you hit it with water pretty quickly after you put it down, it will smear, as you can see around the edges. So I smeared some of the lines I had scribbled on there, as well as splashed some of the ink that I'd gotten in my brush. Y'all, I really love this. Like, I could have just left this at that, and I think it's pretty awesome, just like that. So I did dry it. And I'm playing around with my button, decided to bring in a bit of lace that just happens to be the exact length of the card. It's probably something I trimmed down for another card and ended up not liking. So, and I kind of knew I was going to put that button over on the left side because there's a lot less color on that side, so the button stands out a bit more. So that was the reason I decided almost immediately that button, that's where it needs to go, is on that left side. So I am inking up the edges of the card also, just like I did the button, to frame up this card and give it a little bit of shadow on its own. From there, I'm going to pull out, I've got a little zippered pouch that I've shoved a bunch of little elements from other projects, from my snippet roll, from some of these other cards, things that just, they end up scattered on your desk. So I have those all in a little zippered pouch. and just kind of decided to make a little stack of things. So I've got this circle that's got the number 8 on it, and I'm flipping through it, and I've got this, it's a Tim Holtz, I think it's a Field Notes ephemera piece that says specimen or something on it, and I'm going to stuff that back there, and I'm really liking that. I'm like, okay, that brings that black in. Then there's that bit of neutral from that specimen card. I am going to ink these up so everything kind of has that aged feel. Also, these die cuts, the edges are all white and they feel, I don't know, brand new. So inking them like that gives them more of a defined feel, a little age on them. So I took a moment to kind of turn my Fabri-Tac bottle upside down so that the glue could go to the tip of the bottle, and then I looked through my sentiment stickers and pulled out my Tim Holtz Small Talk stickers, and I'm going to glue everything down. I started with the specimen sticker, not sticker, little card thing there, the die cut, and I'm figuring out where I want that bit of lace so I could make sure I put a line of the Fabri-Tac right across my card and stick my lace right in it. And then I'll put the other 2 pieces down. And to once I get these kind of glued down, I will pull up the sentiment that is live your dream with passion. That's right there at the top of this. I think that's part of the reason I chose this, is because this sheet is like getting real empty, and I was like, well, I need to just go ahead and use this one. So I did ink it up as well as glue it. Those stickers, especially me gluing onto that lace, it's definitely not gonna stay, so that additional little bit of glue helps secure it well, because I do take these ICADs and turn them into greeting cards, at least ones that seem to apply. Sometimes they don't seem appropriate, that somebody would give somebody else, so not all of them do, but this one probably will end up as a greeting card that'll go to Hello Gallery, where I sell my jewelry and art and cards. If you happen to be in the Fairhope area, I encourage you to go check it out. So I have got that done, but I felt like I knew that the color that was on that button was some Americana coral blush, and I really wanted that color in its full opacity on the card. So I put a little in that palette and watered it down, and then I'm using a fan brush to splatter it all over the card, and then I'll dry it. But y'all, this is gonna get on the button on those little ephemera bits that we glue down, and that's fine. That helps all of those things kind of integrate into the card together. So I'm gonna dry it and then give you a quick look at this, and then we'll get to the next card in this video. The 2 prompts for day 53 of ICAD are the Game of Life and Wax. And I'm going to go ahead and tell you, this card and the next one, I don't use either one of the prompts, which is crazy, but they just didn't speak to me. Like, I really wanted to add those 3D elements and not think too hard about this, just kind of go intuitively with some of these, and that's absolutely what I'm working with. So to start this one, I'm doing what I usually do. The last one I put down just a whole piece of paper, and I think I just wanted to get to the creating of it. But this one I'm going to I pulled out a bunch of little scraps from I've got a scrap bin that I pulled out a bunch of things, including, you can see over there on the far right, a strip of denim. So it's some old jeans that I've torn down, and that's part of a seam. I think part of the pocket is even still there. So there's a bit of white something that I'm pretty sure is probably a pocket that I just kind of tore off with everything. Now, instead of using my Oohoo to glue things down, this time I'm using a fluid matte medium from Liquitex. The bottle I'm using, y'all, I've got a big thing of that Liquitex matte medium, and it's just too hard to work with, so I've put it in this smaller bottle to be able to keep it on my desk and use it without dumping like a ton out at a time. So I am gluing these bits down kind of just haphazardly. My big thing is I like to have the torn edges there if possible, and I don't like to have like things together. So if I have two similar pieces of things, I'm not going to put them right next to each other. But since I pulled from that scrap bin, it's all kinds of stuff there. It's just all kinds of mania stuff. Now, since that medium is fairly fluid, I am going to try this before I come in and clip off the stuff that comes off the edges. So as you can tell, I'm not super precision focused when I put things down. If it comes off the edge, that's fine. I can come back in and cut that stuff off. And the whole collaging of the cards for me is a way to get that background started, have some busy hands. It kind of revs, I keep saying it revs up my creative engine to just stick things down and have those busy hands before I come back in with other things. I suppose I was feeling like using my instant coffee. So I've got this little yogurt cup that I put instant coffee crystals in and activate it, and then it dries. And when I'm ready to use it again, I spray some more water and go to town. So in this, I kind of paint it randomly. This time I did 3 straight lines. It doesn't really matter in the end of this, but it was just one of those things, going for it. I went and grabbed 2 of my Distress Oxide sprays. This first blue one is Uncharted Mariner. I shook it up really well and then used that big paintbrush that I'm going to just, splatter that right onto my card, kind of twirl it around. This is, I think, something I've seen Kristen Peterson do. I think she's Altered State Studio, I believe. I always get it backwards. Her name's Kristen Peterson, and I'll put a link to her below if I remember to. And then I grabbed the Iced Spruce Distress Oxide spray and just sprayed little spritzes of it before adding a little bit of water to help move those 2 inks around together. So I'm not going to do a whole lot with it. I'm looking at it, letting it sink in, and then I'm going to start drying it. But as I dry it, I did pick up that card and let it move around some. And then it took a little while to get it dry because I was super wet. And then I'm coming back in with some black India ink, and I put it right in that palette, and I'm using a round brush to pick it up and do some mark making. And I love this ink for making just a bright, it's so bold, it's so black, it's so dark that it's just perfect. And when it dries, it's fairly matte, so it's not going to be shiny like a lot of like acrylic inks or acrylic paints might be. But you can see a couple of those where the Distress Oxide spray hadn't completely dried because the shape is kind of spreading, and part of that's the Distress Oxide. Some of that is even the papers I used underneath being more absorbent than other papers. I did splatter some of that ink as well, just to kind of carry that black ink around the card a bit more. And I dried it, but I'm coming back in with some water and sprinkling that over my card. And then I'm going to pick it up with a clean paper towel because the Distress Oxides are water reactive. And you can see that blue ink already coming up there. But you see the spots now that I have created on there, and that's just with the water, y'all. So I'm definitely playing with those water reactive materials. I do love that I can do that. Now there was a little stamp thing that I put down that had this like pinky maroony, I don't even know what that color might be, color on there that I kind of wanted to carry around on the card. So I pulled out my watercolors and tried to do a little bit of color mixing to get a similar card. I'm using some reds and some pinks and some white to try to get it, not pinks, some reds and some yellows and white. I don't know, tried to make that color. And there, it's about as close as I think I'm going to get it. And I'm going to put this on the card, but y'all, it never really, I'm looking at the card right now and I can vaguely see that color, but it's definitely not something that stands out. And I don't know if you can tell also, I'm trying not to hit where those Distress Oxides are because those, again, are water reactive and will reactivate if I get that water on there. So, worked kind of around, and so on the edges of this card you can kind of see that pinky color, but it's not a huge deal. So I decided I'm going to go ahead and pick up my little denim piece. Nope, and I put it back down, didn't I? So I'm going to go ahead and try this card. And I grabbed these are Tim Holtz photo strips or photo booths. They're photo booth, y'all. I think I've got a sinus infection and I'm like not thinking completely straight right now. So I'm sorry if my words are all cattywampus, but that's really nothing new for me, is it? Anyway, I grabbed this picture of this kid, and tore across the top edge, but I am trimming the other three sides and I'm curving the edges as well. I don't like pointy edges. If you saw my last video, actually was was a jewelry thing, and all of the corners I trimmed those off too. I don't like pointy edges. It's a thing. I am distressing the edges that I just cut just with my fingernail, really. I could have used another tool. But from there, I decided there's so much black on that card that I wanted to brighten it up somehow. So what I decided to do was take this pokey tool, and you could use like a needle or a pen or something instead of like a tool like this to do it. And I am scratching into the black of his shirt the words "Dream Big." Just because I can. Like I said, there's so much black on that card that I really wanted it to stand out a little bit more. And the paper in this really, it's white. It's gonna show up. So I'm scratching that in, and look how cool. I love this. I've used this technique a couple times, but it's definitely something I think is super fun. All right, so there he is. From there, I think am I gonna ink him up yet? No. This is one I definitely futzed with quite a bit. I did this all in one haul, though. There may be snips through this video, but it's only because I cut out the drying time. I did this whole card in one like sit down without stopping and having to come back to it. So I did stuff his picture kind of like up in between the seams of these jeans, and I'm going to trim it down the denim a little bit just so it's not coming off the card so much. And then I'm going to grab some, whatchamacallit, I think it's crochet thread. I'm going to grab it eventually. Yeah, there it is. I picked this up I've got several rolls of it now because I see it at thrift stores all the time, and I don't crochet, but it's fun for stitching. So I did get it on my needle off camera, tie a knot, and now I am going to stitch him to the jeans. He's not getting glued, just straight on doing a running stitch down, hem to the jeans, and then I'm going to do a couple of extra stitches. Now this off-white color of this crochet thread is perfect for me because you can still see it. If I had done like a blue that blended into the jeans, that's fine. Oh, I must have hit my finger there. Ooh. Trying to poke through some of those layers. Forgot where my finger was. Y'all be careful out there. Crafting is a dangerous thing. So, I'm bleeding for my art there, I am sure. So I'm going to add a couple more stitches, and then I'm going to add stitches, another line of them all the way up the outside of this. But for me, it makes it adds additional texture to this. So of course the jeans have like the blue and the white and all that on it, but this stitch is just additional texture. It's part of that whole thing I was saying that I really like the 3D assemblage elements, and I am definitely going to get into that just a little bit more once I finish this running stitch up the side. But when it comes to mark making, I made those black marks in the background, which are similar almost to the stitches I'm making here, but you could do mark making with something other than like an ink. You can do it with your paints. You can do it with a stitch. You can do it with a line of beads even. Or take a glue gun and put that down, or a stamp repeated is a great mark making tool. So I love to explore different ways to add that kind of visual texture to things. So here I am grabbing some Distress ink in Walnut Stain on an ink blender and just putting that around the edges of that card. I'm trying to make sure everything's nice and secure, and then I'm going to tie off my thread here. Am I going to actually make a knot? Possibly not. No, I'm just going, yep, back through the fabric a couple times and tying it off. Yeah, I definitely poked that finger. I keep messing with it. So yeah, I'm bleeding for my craft. So I am going to, what am I going to do there? Oh, I decided I needed a few more marks on my card. I kind of put that focal where I felt like it needed to be, and I'm seeing that, I'm covering up a lot of those marks that I made. So I'm coming back in to get a few more of them, so that it doesn't seem so disjointed, like if they're all on the right side, because there's not any coming out from behind this card, then yeah. So that's what I'm doing there. I'm gonna go overboard. Sometimes I feel like I'm trying to conserve from making marks, and I don't know why. It's one of those, like, my 100-day project this year was about not being precious with things. And even when it comes to like doing the ink and all of that, sometimes I can be too precious and be like, I don't have to cover the whole thing in marks. But why not? Why shouldn't I don't I'm trying to teach myself sometimes that it's okay. So I pulled out a couple of my favorite ways to add texture to things, and one is a rusty safety pin, and secondly, I'm pulling out a couple of buttons. I'm actually only going to use one of them. I'll try to bring a couple more back in later, but it's just going to be the one. So I am putting that rusty safety pin through some of the jean material and the stitching as carefully as I can, because I definitely don't want to poke my finger with that. And I think I got it in a spot I didn't really care for, so I'm trying to get it in a better spot. Because again, yeah, I don't want to poke myself with a rusty safety pin. And then I'm going to put that button right there by the safety pin. Because the safety pin does kind of blend into the picture and on there. By putting that pop of white of that button there, I'm kind of drawing your eye to it, because again, a lot of this on the card is really dark, and putting these pops of white help brighten it up and pull the eye in. So I'm using that same thread there to just do a quick stitch to get that button on there. Trying to anyway. I'm trying to also make sure I go through the material so that that button is secured to the material that's on there, and not just kind of free floating on this on just one part of the jeans. I don't want it floppy in any way. And then I will tie the button off. Do I actually tie it off, or do I just go back through the jeans again? Oh, let's see, guys. Like I mentioned, this is a project that runs June and July, and now we're in October. So I didn't do as good of a job doing an introduction for the ICADs as I did for my 100-day project. So with these, I'm just trying to remember what it was I did and where my mindset was. So I'm going to use my Fabri-Tac again and make sure I cover the back of pretty much everything, because I did have those threads I didn't actually tie off. So all of the jeans, I am going underneath that like bit of pocket that's there, and everything's getting a good coating of the Fabri-Tac before I stick it down on the card. Really, that's going to be it for this card. I decide here at the last minute that I want to ink up the edges of the card once I get all of this secure. I think I'm going to grab a paper towel and kind of clean up some of the glue that's seeping out. See, I tried to bring these buttons in, but I don't need it. I mean, it's neat looking, but I think it detracts from the actual focal that's there. So I'll ink up the edges of this card, and I'm going to give you a quick look at it, and we'll get to the last card in this video. The prompts for day 54 are Mahjong and cloth from a bound book. As I mentioned last card, I am not going to use either of those prompts. I do have Mahjong tiles in my craft room, and I also have plenty of cloth from bound books I could have used, but I was in a bit of a rush on this day. I had to go look at my Instagram post to confirm, but yeah, I wanted to go thrifting this day, so I decided to just do this as quick as I could and started with some underpaper. This is, as you can tell, the same underpaper that I've got under this, what I'm working on. It's, y'all, it's from Dollar Tree. It is the kids like sketchbook paper. They come in big sheets. They used to sell them in packs of 30 and now it's only 15, even though it's 25% more. I'm getting cheated on my Dollar Tree supplies. But anyway, I like this paper because it's not something that I could absolutely recreate if I wanted to. It's all very unique and grungy and got little bits of things that I've already used. So it's colors that I do use. And yeah, so I am once again using my fluid matte medium and a silicone spreader tool to stick all of these bits down, and it is a genuine mess. So I've also, that's some sewing pattern paper I guess I decided to throw in. I like how it gives a little bit of like aged color to things when you add it over the top of them. So I'm going to, yeah, stick those down, flatten it out. I've got this spreader tool thing. I'm going to make sure everything's kind of flattened down. And I think I'm going to start to dry it, but decide that, is this the one I had? Yeah, I think I decide that I need a little more something. Yeah, especially something with maybe some text on it. So I stick down a little bit of dictionary paper that I think was sitting on my desk from the day before's card. Yep. So I do dry that, and I'm only going to trim a little bit of this. I think, yeah, because I definitely have stuff hanging off the edges. I'm looking at the actual card right this minute, and I only trimmed like anything that was like annoyingly hanging off for some reason. Some of it just stays on. So from there, I grabbed my hand carved stamps, and I've got this one that is one big X that I love, and I'm using my black soot distress oxide and just stamping around on the card to add a bit of black and a pattern on there, because there was definitely no kind of pattern or anything. In the end, these X's, I had to look real hard when I was editing this video. I was like, I put X's on this card, and I kept looking at this card going, I don't see these X's. So this was definitely something to just kind of give me busy hands. Again, kind of my creative warm up. Because I am using the Distress Oxide and it is water reactive, I did come in and blur the edges of of all those X's. The right side of them I blurred. From there, I grabbed a little bit of white gesso, put that on my desk, and I'm picking it up with a brayer to spread across the card in kind of an organic pattern, very haphazardly, very, I don't know, I say organic, and it's because it's not a pattern. It's going to do what it wants to do. And that definitely pushed those X's back. And is one of the first things, yeah, that makes them hard to see when I'm looking at this card. I decided I needed a bit of splatter, so I've pulled in this paint, which is probably Sea Aqua from Americana. I'm using my fan brush to splatter on the card with it, and I've definitely got some like really big chunky bits of splatter on this card. So I'm going to start to dry it. I do dry it, but the biggest splatters, I think, oh, that's not what I did. Yeah, no, I dried it, and then I came in with that little bit that's still in the palette, and I'm using my finger to just spread it around on the card, so I have more of that blue-green color on there, that lovely yumminess on there, and then I'm going to fully dry the card. Then I turned it to a Sharpie paint pen. This is a gold one, and I'm making these weird little rectangles randomly-ish on here. And honestly, when I look at this card, it has the feeling like it is woven because of these similarly sized rectangles that are on there, so it feels like there's woven spaces in there, even though it's not actually woven. It's just kind of a pattern of these gold rectangles. Now I felt like they got lost in there, so I decided to accent them with a not rollerball. That's just a plain old ballpoint pen, a clicky ballpoint pen, and I'm doing super sketchy lines around them with lots of little, like, I don't know, off swings, and it's not exact in any way. I gave that a second to dry, I suppose. Oh, I went and looked to try to figure out what I wanted to put on here. And so I've pulled out that same little zippered pouch, again, that has all the randomness I've used from other things, and decided I am going to stitch it, this little piece of rust fabric, stitch it on to my card. I already had this blue thread, which kind of matches that paint I splattered on there. I already had it in my pin cushion on my desk, and I'm making these X's on this fabric. And I don't know if you can tell yet, you'll tell in a minute, but there we go. As I am sewing it, I'm kind of scrunching up this fabric, giving it more texture and depth than it actually has. So, and I'm trying to, make sure that where my stitches are falling are keeping that kind of scrunched up pattern. And I love, love, love this. I'd forgotten I'd done this. And I really feel like I want to go in my craft room right now and like just sew fabric to a bunch of paper. And scrunch it up. So I'm going to get most of the way across this fabric. I think, I'm going to do at least one more and decide I want to pull in something else on this, something that I'm trying to, I was having a hard time getting through there with the layers I already had on there. So I'm going to dip back in, I think, to that pouch in just a second and look for something else that'll help add some more texture, add more depth. Like I said, I'm doing the whole 3D element thing. This is definitely one of them. So this card, on all three of these cards, I have put embroidery floss and little, I don't know, it just feels like very much me on these three cards, that they've got these assemblage-y elements to them. And now I want to go make a bunch more ICADs. It just, So I dipped back into that pouch, kind of played around with different things in there, found this little bit of lace, and go ahead and get one little stitch on it, and I'm going to end up, bunching it up as well for my next stitch to make sure that it's kind of bunchy as well. Once I get about that far, I'm starting to realize I don't have like a focal element for this. I think I need to go find what it is I'm going to use for my focal. So I start sorting through that little pouch, didn't find anything, turned instead to, I've got all kinds of little tidbits of things. This was a watch face that I had originally put in a bracelet that didn't work out, or I was going to put it in a bracelet, but you can see where it has chipped from me punching the holes in it. So it didn't get worked into jewelry, but it got put aside because it'd be perfect for something else. And this is it. This is the thing. So it's got these holes in there, and I am stitching this watch face right onto this card with the holes that are already there. So easy enough. It's a perfect little focal. Once I get it on there, I am going to tie this off real quick. And then I started looking for some kind of sentiment, because for me, I don't know, especially if I'm going to turn this into a greeting card, it needs some kind of sentiment. So I ended up grabbing my Tim Holtz label stickers, and the phrase "make today count" seemed to be kind of perfect, since I've got that clock on there. It's about time and all of that. And I don't know why I didn't stick it right there. I think I was afraid I was going to cover up too much of that fabric and too much of that clock, that I was like, okay, well, I'm going to put it up here, which it's fine up there. It kind of gives it, left to right kind of pattern of things. And then I'm going to add some shadow onto this card. I'm going to start by using, that's that same like Dollar Tree bleedy pen that I've got, and put a shadow right under there. I could have also used a Stabilo All or some kind of watercolor pencil or something like that, but I don't know. I love this pen. And I'm going to give the clock a little bit of shadow, and then I'm going to go around the right and underside of each of my little gold boxes, at least the ones that I can get to. And And once I get that done, I think I might ink up this card with some more black soot and I'll be finished with it. Now, I've given you a quick look at each of these cards between them, but I'm going to give you some detail shots at the end so you can see the details of them. That's my favorite part, or some of the details of these. So I cannot pick a favorite of these three. It would probably be narrowed down to the first or the second one. I do love this third one, especially that bunched up rusty fabric. But I'd like to know what your favorite card is, or at least what your favorite elements I've added to these is. Definitely let me know in the comments below. If you have any questions about ICAD or my process or anything at all, I would definitely love to answer those for you. So ask away. And I really appreciate that you've come and spent this time with me, and I will have more for you later. Thanks for watching. Bye.